Okay. Hi. Welcome to my presentation on gender differences in employee motivation and understanding the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. Let's get started. Okay, so I wanted to first introduce the different definitions of motivation. Firstly, employee motivation, which is the internal or external force that typically drives an employee to complete a particular action or task of a job and do a good job at it. Intrinsic motivation is a type of motivation that a person experiences when they enjoy the task from an intrinsic point of view, no matter the challenge of the task. Extrinsic motivation is a type of motivation that arises from non personal factors, which may include tasks that people may not enjoy doing. Intrinsic motivations are usually reinforced using different rewards or incentives. Motivation in the workplace is very different than in every regular everyday life and through the different factors that take place within the workplace. These differences can also differ because of the individual differences that an employee possesses. Employee motivation shows how a person's personality affects how intrinsic or extrinsic motivations guides them throughout their career. And understanding the difference in how a person's personality reacts or responds is affected by both internal and external motivations. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so motivation in the workplace and the different factors that contribute to it. So, what influences a person's motivation in the workplace? Is it a singular motivation or is it a multitude of factors that lead to a person having a particular motivation in the workplace? And to what degree does motivation depend on outside factors? Do they truly make a difference? Do types of positions make a difference in the type of motivation initiated by the employee? Let's go back down. And do higher level employees make more than entry level, and on what merits do these occur? Do the different levels of the job require more responsibility or more education? And has the workplace changed in recent years to create a more manageable workplace than in years past? And do the technological advances of the 21st century enhance or diminish an employee's motivation in the workplace? And what does that future in the workplace exactly look like? Does it include AI robots that are currently being advertised all over the place and how people have been for many years scared that they're going to take our jobs? Or does it look differently than what we would imagine the future to be? Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, gender differences in motivation. Some of these factors I came to the conclusion to were: does the gender of an employee affect their motivation in their workplace? And in what ways does this happen? And do they influence positively or negatively, depending on what gender you are? Does an increase in gender equality lend itself to bringing in more motivation for both men and women? Or does one gender seem to reap the benefits of gender equality more so? Is it traditionally harder or easier for a man in the workplace over a woman? Let's go back to the slide. It says, does the current state of gender equality lend itself to being an equal member of society or not? And to what extent does this hold for true for women versus how it holds for men? Is there a difference or just a perceived difference of positive or negative inequities? Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So, article number one, fueling employees' commitment. In this particular study, evaluates how an employee's motivation influences how an employee reacts to their job responsibilities via internal and external motivation. And this study used two types of motivation that are categorized as autonomous versus controlled motivation, and both are, according to the article, cited as in, intrinsic motivation refers to engaging in activities because of the sense of pleasure that is commonly associated with fulfilling that job, whereas introjected regulation describes instances where behaviors are enacted to avoid internal pressures such as guilt or shame. And external regulation refers to behaviors that are aimed at obtaining rewards rather than a satisfying social event. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, article number two, workers' motivation, role blurring, and well-being profiles, a person-centered approach. So this particular article discussed the different examined profiles that take shape in different motivational means. And the study examined how the different motivational profiles were adapted to in each individual contestant or employee. And as cited, it says researchers have previously examined motivational profiles and have come to the conclusion of 4 motivational profiles, which include unmotivated, moderately autonomous, highly motivated, and balanced. And these profiles vary according to the type of individual that it is being applied to. Another consideration is the fact that the rate of application seems to be a more important factor when considering how these 4 motivational profiles are applied to each of the workers in this particular article. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, understanding employee motivation for work to non-work integration. This article dives into the idea of how motivation can delve into other areas of a person's life other than in the workplace, which can include their personal life, their home life, and essentially how they act outside of work is really what we're trying to look for in understanding how those particular factors may contribute to whether or not a person is motivated to work or not motivated at all to work. And this it transcends how in the other aspects of an employee's drive is in accomplishing tasks. If they are really motivated to get like, let's say they're really motivated to repair a car that they've been working on for many weeks, and they go at it every single day and they just try to progress every single day, then that means it will most likely, or at least assuming, will most likely be similar to their motivation within the workplace. Go on to the next slide. Okay, article number 4, the case of workers in Korea and gender differences in motivation. The particular purpose of this paper was to investigate on behalf of the workers in Korea and to investigate gender differences in motivations in those who wanted to use the flexible work arrangements. The differences amongst gender that take place in people's lives obviously different from person to person, which makes sense because there are biological and environmental factors that do take precedent in each single gender for a variety of reasons. But because of the recent influx of both men and women in the workplace since the 30s and 40s, there have been many studies that dive into how they can work together and maintain motivation amongst themselves. So this particular article tries to incorporate outside factors that may contribute to why one gender is more motivated in the workplace over the other, and understanding the background ties that essentially play a huge role in their motivation at the workplace. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, article number 5, education and gender-based differences in employee motivation. So this particular article depicts the different factors that influence a person's motivation in the workplace and how those differ according to the gender of the applicants. As cited within the article, this is research of gender-related motivational differences is based on the idea of fundamental differences between men and women, essentially trying to have the audience understand that the reason why there is motivational differences is based on the idea that there are differences between both men and women, that it's not always going to be, it's not exactly equal playing field, because there are automatic and biological differences between both genders, and essentially trying to get the audience to understand that certain stereotypes seem to be within a particular historical concept of one gender over the other, and that has a lot of merit when considering gender-based differences in employee motivations. Another idea that it ties into really nicely is the idea of how education level can enhance or diminish someone's motivation in the workplace regardless of their gender. This article, it only covers it somewhat, not necessarily in the same regards as other articles that would go directly into the idea of how education can influence an individual's motivation. But it does give the idea that if someone has more education, that they will most likely be more motivational, whereas on the opposite side, if a person doesn't seek out higher education, that they might not be as motivated to do a good job or continue in something. Let's go into the next. And those are my scholarly articles. Thank you so much.